from News Center Studios. This is 207.
Good evening and thanks for joining us on 207. I'm Rob Caldwell.
And I'm Caroline Cornish. Coming up on tonight's show, a young man in Topsom has combined his twin passions of art and music to create a series of impressive portraits burned onto wooden boards. And wait till you hear what happened on the first day he tried wood burning.
And we are talking with some impassioned folks who are seizing the Rocky Horror Picture Show's campy cult following and using the movie to teach a lesson.
But first tonight, if you went away to college, you probably have a pretty clear memory of your first trip there, piling into the car with your family and possessions to start a new chapter of your life. But your trip to school was definitely nothing like Sally Gardiner Smith's.
That is not exaggeration. For starters, Sally is getting to school unescorted in a sailboat. Second, she's sailing the entire East Coast. She casts off from Georgetown, Maine. So far, she has made it all the way to Jacksonville, Florida. From there, the plan is to take a little detour over to the Bahamas to visit her family. And after that, it's around the Keys and north to the Gulf Coast city of St. Petersburg. She left her ship at anchor in Jacksonville to come home for the holidays. And while she was here, we got the chance to talk to her about how her love of sailing started at a very young age.
We crossed the Atlantic and we went down to the Caribbean.
And you did all of that before you were even in kindergarten, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I learned to walk on a boat. So the first time I saw grass, I was all weirded out about it, or walked on it.
So what made you, even though you had that sort of personal background and that history of sailing, what made you want to undertake this trip?
I just love sailing. I love being on the water and I want to make it my life. So I thought, as I'm sort of starting my adult life, it would be the perfect time to do it by myself with my dog. Did
anybody say to you, this is not a good idea? Anyone try to talk you out of it?
No one that really knows me, but sometimes I meet people and I tell them what they're doing and they're like, that's a bad idea.
You were just 18 when you started?
Yes.
Where did you begin?
I started in Georgetown, Maine, which is near my house in Woolwich. And then I left again from Portland. When I left from my dad's house from Portland.
Well, there's nothing wrong with more than one good send-off.
It's the thing about a sailboat is you'll sail all day and you'll still be 45 minutes by road from where you left or something.
It was just you and your dog, Ellie?
Yes.
What kind of companionship did Ellie offer, especially in those first few days?
Oh, so much companionship. She's sweet and she's friendly. Not a very good conversationalist.
But a great listener.
A great listener and a good snuggler.
You were down in Massachusetts, not far into the trip, when something really unexpected and potentially heartbreaking happened. What was it?
Well, I was taking her ashore to go to the bathroom because I haven't trained her to use the head yet. And she just ran across the street and she got hit by someone's pickup truck. And we had to drive half an hour to the nearest emergency vet clinic. And she was in surgery for 2 hours or 3 hours, and they called and they were like, we have to amputate the leg. And it was kind of a mixed blessing because she was okay, but now she has 3 legs. But
she survived.
Yes.
You shed a lot of tears during that whole episode.
I did. I felt so guilty because, the dog's not capable on their own. As the owner, you're sort of supposed to take care of them.
But Ellie came back.
Ellie did come back.
And you learned some important lessons from how she came back and what sort of a spirit and temperament she had when she got out of the vets, right?
Oh, yeah. She was wagging her tail, still all surgeryed out. But she was just, happy to see me and totally didn't care.
So you resumed your trip, and you have, in the last few weeks, the last couple of months, you have sailed from Maine all the way down to Florida. What has the trip been like?
Oh, it's been amazing. Parts of it have been lonely because I am by myself, but I get to meet so many really, really cool people along the way, other sailors or people who I meet who live on land. And I've kind of proved a lot to myself about what I'm capable of. Or kind of what anyone is capable of if they give it a shot. Obviously,
you had scary moments with Ellie. How about at sea? Have you had some moments that were genuinely unsettling and that had you a bit rattled?
I did. Right when I left, when I was still in Maine, I ran over the piece of rope that you attach your little boat to your big boat with, and it got wrapped in my propeller, and my engine shut off, and the current was really strong, and I had to get my boat to the dock and then swim underneath it with a knife in Maine in October and cut the line off, and that was kind of scary.
It was a good example of how things can go wrong on a boat, and one thing leads to another, to another, to another, what I believe your dad called a cascading series of failures,
yes.
which can end up being catastrophic for
yes,
a sailor, right?
They can. Things can like turn like that. Like you can be having a beautiful day, but there's always like the risk of like those rocks over there, or that buoy, or that other sailor, or falling overboard, especially for a solo sailor, is like a very dangerous thing.
You're out there alone. Have you gotten bored?
I do get bored sometimes, but I read a lot, and it's, you know, there's usually something to do, like trim the sail a little bit or clean something.
People would be surprised that, or might be surprised that you're not just out in the open sea. You've been on the intracoastal waterway a lot of the time, and actually you're in fairly, you know, tight quarters where you got to actually worry about tree branches clipping your mast, right?
Yes, I actually have had a tree branch clip my mast, and it messed something up at the top, so I had to go up to the top of it and fix it. But it's kind of like trees. Who has to worry about trees when you're sailing?
So you've made it from Maine to Jacksonville, Florida.
Uh-huh.
Where do you go? Where will you go before the trip is complete?
I'm going to go down to the tip of Florida, and then I'm going to cross over to the Abacos, which is the more northern part of the Bahamas. And I'm going to see my grandparents there, because they sail also. And then I'll go down to the Exumas, which is the southern part, and then back around up to St. Petersburg, where I'm going to go to college.
I've been reading your blog. A couple things that stand out is you talk about the importance of learning not just from your successes, but from the hardships.
Yeah.
And to learn resilience. We talked a little bit about that in relation to LA. But what have you learned so far from the hardships of this trip?
Well, kind of, you know, the importance of determination. Like with my engine, I really haven't worked with diesel engines a lot before this, or any kind of engine. And if you don't give up the first like 10 or 20 times that you're not making any headway, you might make it on like the next try, you know? So you really, if you never give up, you have a much higher chance of, you know, success.
You said at the start of the conversation that you really want to make sailing a central part of your life. What's the plan for after you finish this trip, after you finish college?
Well, maybe I'll get a bigger boat. I love my boat now, but it is only 29 feet, and I don't have refrigeration or anything, so I want to be a captain of people's yachts, so, you know, someone would hire you and you sail them around for them, and it's a really cool way to live and make money.
Really cool way.
Yeah.
Not only does she not have refrigeration, she also doesn't have heat, and she said it was pretty chilly on one stretch of the trip. I think it was in the Chesapeake Bay. She was going through there, and I forget if it was October or November, no heat, down in the 20s at night, cold.
Yeah,
really
and
cold.
you don't want to get splashed when the weather's like that
you don't
either.
want to. You got to pay attention to that. That's something else you have to worry about, hypothermia and things like that. There's just
little details.
the list of things that you got to worry about when you're out on a boat alone is unending.
A lot of perseverance there.
Yeah,
Good stuff.
Impressive young woman.